Okay, here's my latest project. It's basically a small Mulvihill, so I'm trying to build a little bit smaller rubber, 30 to 40 inches. This is 40 inches projected, and I'm using much lighter equipment. I'll talk about that in another video. Here it's just a single lipo and it weighs much less. Now basically what I did here is I took the stab from Jim O'Reilly's Smalvihill, okay, which is a nice stab, and I also basically used his rudder. Except I put a big fin on this, so this is radio control, and I want to make sure I can turn it and keep it in the field. Now he has a built-up fuselage, but I'm a little too lazy for that, so I just use a rolled balsa tube and I polyfiberglassed it. All right. The pylon I had to extend a little bit. I made it about 1.5 inches, and that holds all the equipment. Since it's a single lipo, it's not that much equipment. Now the wing was from actually his coup de verre, the Winterhawk 3, and I used that because it's a little bit bigger. It's 190 square inches, and I really wanted that extra area, okay, even though again it's only a 40-inch wingspan. Now on the prop I'll show you a couple other things. Oh yeah, let me talk about the covering basically. So once again I used Yoo-hoo and glue stick and polyspan, and that really works fantastic. I really like it. I grew up with stick and tissue, but I love the polyspan. It's great. Okay, so then one thing I mentioned on my other videos is that I take 50% thin white glue after I do the bottom, and I put it along each rib to make sure it's really glued down there so it holds the under camber. All right, and that came out really nice. And now what I do these days is also on the stab and the rudder. After I do that and it's all finished, I'll put it all around the leading edge. It soaks right through, and that really holds it on there. Okay, then you can shrink it nice and tight like this. Came out really smooth and no problems with it peeling off. It's also important that you do that at the dihedral, all right, because sometimes when you shrink it, it'll come out at the dihedral, all right, so you got to put a little bit of line of thin white glue there. This I sprayed fluorescent orange. It's kind of like a very light orange, so that didn't come out too bad. Now the other thing that's different is on the prop. Basically you can carve one from scratch. I showed you that in my other tube stake. But here what I did is I bought it from Superior Props. You can also get them from FAI Model Supply. So all you really got to do is sand and dope this. Of course I made a little jig again here. This slides back and forth, okay? And then you get the prop in there, it sets the pitch, and then this, you can put the drill in there to get the right angle. And when you do that, it'll fold nice and flat, like this one does, all right? So it's basically an 18-inch prop. The other thing I did different is if you look at my tube stake on the Z-bar hub, it's soldered, but here I used, this is again from Superior Props, or FAI Model Supply has it. What's nice about this is the Z-bar has a little aluminum hub, and it has little nuts in there you can tighten with an Allen wrench, so it makes it removable. You can put in the shaft, and if it gets bent at the field, you can take it out. Now in the old days, he threaded the prop retainers for you, but he didn't do that anymore. So here's what you got to do. You put it in a clamp, all right, and you make sure only what you want to heat is exposed. You don't want to heat the rest of it. You want to keep it nice and strong. And then on the exposed part with a blowtorch, you want to heat it cherry red, all right? You really got to make sure you get it glowing cherry red. Then you let it air cool, and when you let it air cool, basically what that does is it anneals it, it softens it, so then you can take a die like this. This is a 3/32 die, and you can thread it, all right? Then for the little plastic retainers, I took a tap, okay, and let's see, here's the tap over here, and so you can thread those, all right, and then when you do that, you can screw it on like this. So as you can see, it's got a nice little retainer there, screws on. I also got a spring, a ball bearing. Now the other thing I do that's different these days is, again, well, I also use 3/32 wire here because the front ends really take a beating. And I don't use the balsa anymore here. The first time you hit a fence, that gets ruined. So now what I do is I take ply, like 1/8-inch ply, and I laminated them, and then I sanded it nice and round like that. And that's just a lot more durable, okay? Plane came out a little heavier than I wanted. It was about 5 ounces, but should still be okay. The equipment's much lighter this time. It's only 16.6 grams. So it's supposed to be a nice day tomorrow. I think I'll get out and we'll see how this flies with the new equipment.